Call the meeting of our so-called ad hoc capital debt committee to order on April 2, 2024. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Lisa Photo. Matt Sullivan.
Present.
Tim Cummings.
Present.
Alderman GOV.
Here.
Alderman Clemens.
Here.
Alderman O'Brien. Alderman Wilshire.
Here.
Alderman Klee is here, and Mayor Donches.
Here. All right. Well, to review our mission, we have the President Wilshire and I suggested appointing a committee, which the Board of Aldermen confirmed, and here we are with the members, to look at the issue of the city's debt and how we should proceed over the next few years. The presumption was that we have many more projects in terms of the dollar amounts than we can possibly afford over the next 5 years, and the idea was that we would seek to limit at a maximum the amount of new borrowing to the amount of $30 million a year. To that end, we have a whole list of projects which you see up on the screen now, and tonight we've asked so we plan over a period of a few meetings to bring in the various departments to inform us, to advise us regarding their projects and their merits. And so tonight we asked the fire department and the police department to come in and talk a little bit about the things that they believe are most important to them. So with that, I will give the mic over to Administrative Services Director Tim Cummings, who's going to introduce our safety services.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to the committee. Before we call up our first department, which I'm going to ask the fire department to come, I wanted to give everyone an orientation to the slide that you see up on the screen. This was presented at the last ad hoc committee meeting, and essentially what this is a listing of projects that was developed in preparation for this ad hoc committee. We did this in consultation with the various departments, and it basically what we asked for was how did the department see the capital expenditure spending occurring over the next 5 or so years and what their priorities would be. We used the CIP that the city develops in consultation with developing of this list. And so what I thought would behoove us this evening is to hear directly from the various departments. And tonight I'm hoping to hear from the fire and police where they talk about the priorities that they articulated to the city administration, and hopefully we can get some details and questions answered, and it will help inform you all as you start to make some decisions as to how to prioritize a 5-year debt service plan. So with that being said, Mr. Mayor, if we could have the fire department come up and talk a little bit about their itemized list, and then we can go from there.
Now we have Alderman O'Brien who arrived, and we did not yet recognize Alderman Dowd, who is here, as well as those whose names were called when we called the roll. And thank you all for coming.
Absolutely. Steve Buxton, Fire Department. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present with you this evening National Fire Rescue's 5-year forecast for capital expenditures. This evening I have with me Assistant Chief Mark Cooley, Assistant Chief Adam Pouliot, and then back there in the crowd we have Commissioner Gary Lambert and Commissioner Tom Kelly. So for our 5-year planning timeline, as some of you may know, you funded a building condition assessment for us. We're currently engaged in that process toward the contract for the study itself. This is a vast program that's going to be headed by Assistant Chief Pouliot, and it's meant to look at all 8 of our facilities and evaluate the needs for each and every one of them. This will include the entire building envelope, the systems, as well as the grounds. In addition, recommendations will be provided on the life and expectancy of each facility and the systems within it. Obviously, at this point, it's very early. We can't project what the cost of the recommendations will be at this point. However, we have done a bit of work on individual projects that we've identified, and some of them are on the list up there, and proposed through the capital improvements program. For instance, the Amherst Street floor repair. In 2023, we got an estimate for that. It's approximately $600,000 to repair the floor. That's not necessarily the final answer. That's a repair.
Excuse, what was the number?
$600,000.
600, okay, sorry.
It's not necessarily the final answer for the situation, and it's unknown what the life cycle of that repair would be. However, the price tag on it currently is $600,000. Roof replacement. Out at Station 6, we have an estimate that currently is up to speed for the fiscal year of $400,000 to replace the roof at Station 6. Station 3 has roofing needs as well that would most likely come close to matching that cost. Our building condition assessment will also project what life expectancy our other roofs have on all of our other facilities. From my experience here at the fire department, I can tell you that it's been better than 15 years since we put a shingle on any of the roofs that we have on any of our existing fire stations. The exception to that would be East Hollis Street. This assessment will also give us a picture of the life expectancy of the structures, the systems, and updates that we need to move NFR into the future. While I can't give you an exact cost at this point in time of what it'll take to achieve all of these things, I do not think that $8 to $10 million price tag would be outside the box for all of the recommendations that are likely to be handed to us. The second thing we have on our list for the 5-year projection, and this is a fairly new one, we're in talks with DPW to potentially relocate our training facility out to the landfill. DPW has some plans out there to build a garage that will kind of put us, we fit, but I guess the best way to describe it is we're going to be tripping over each other with the accommodations that are there. They've identified some land within the landfill that could potentially work for us, and to potentially relocate our facility to a different location in the landfill property. The DPW is optimistic they can assist us in facilitating the relocation and achieve some cost savings. The move would better serve to meet the needs of the DPW as well as NFR moving into the future. However, the price tag for it that we're forecasting for like facilities that have been built in like the city of Worcester, we looked at one, they put up there, and it was just shy of $2 million. It's important to note that the facility we have out there is the only one this side of Concord. So for us to train, we go out there on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day. Multiple companies will be out there. That is tied to our ISO rating, our ability to train out there, so it's very important we maintain that facility. And in conversations with Director Photo, she's very understanding that we wouldn't be able to move that until we have something up and running. And then the third thing we have on our 5-year plan is a new fire station up in the northwest section of the city, and this would replace the fire station on Pine Hill Road. The goal here is to build a multiple unit station in approximately the same area. We would probably reallocate some of our apparatus from the city to lighten the load on some of our older stations and improve our response model. At the same time, we'd like to create space within the facility for the Office of Emergency Management and Radio Communications, as both divisions right now operate out of borrowed space, and having them all under one roof could be very beneficial for the city. Emergency Management in particular has the ability to possibly generate some federal funds to pull in through grants and the like. To be clear, while this station would replace the current station on Pine Hill Road, we would be talking about a much larger facility to house multiple units, and we would probably be looking somewhere in the square footage range of 20 to 22,000 square feet. The price tag on that in like facilities that we looked about in the area was close to $19 million. I know the one that's listed up there is 15, but when we had some initial conversations with Director Cummings, we felt that that number was probably a little on the low side. A lot of the information that we're talking about, and I've listed out for you here tonight, is spelled out in our master plan that we adopted as a city in 2021. We spent money to do that plan, and the Board of Aldermen actually adopted it. In addition to what I've described to you, just to give you a look into the future, what I've said is a 5-year timeline. You should be aware that the 5 to 10-year outlook in the master plan also includes 3 locations for additional stations within the city of Nashua. This is intended to keep up with the growth and development of the city and allow our resources and response models to keep up with industry standards. One is identified as the northwest quadrant, one in the southwest out beyond the landfill, and then one off of South Main Street, just south of the Riviera College campus. The intent of these additional facilities is obviously to keep up with the growth and development of the city. And the master plan identified that fire companies within the city are currently at adequate levels, but as we continue to grow and we need to increase our levels to allow for training, emergency responses, and coverage for concurrent incidents that occur throughout the day. However, we'll continue to monitor this and evaluate as the city grows and NFR experiences increase in the demand for services. In closing, I'd like to reiterate to you that our commitment is to maintain the quality and serviceability of our critical city infrastructure. The citizens of Nashua have made a significant investment into these facilities, and we now need to maintain them appropriately to meet the needs of our community. I appreciate your time and consideration, and I would be certain to discuss or answer any questions anyone may have.
Alderman Wilshire.
Thank you. Excuse me. Chief, the floor on it at the Emmer Street station, you said 600,000 for that. That just repairs it.
Correct.
So what do you mean by just repairs it? It doesn't replace the floor?
No. So the estimate that we have is from an engineering firm. They came in and looked at it. They said it's currently not a safety issue, but could develop into one. We have to have it monitored on an annual basis to make sure nothing changes. It's a very old building up there, as you're well aware, and a lot of moving parts. So the $600,000, that's approximately an 8-inch thick floor with double mat rebar in there. So the crack goes through, they would basically cut that section out along the crack, re-pour it, make any adjustments to the rebar that they need to. So it would be a full depth pour, but only for the section of the crack. So if the crack runs from here to the podium up there, they would cut that section out, hammer it out, form it up, replace it. And yet, the important part to remember is there's a full basement under that section. So you're truly talking about a structural floor at that point. So there's a lot of formwork that has to take place underneath there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Director Cummings.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to clarify a couple of things, Chief. It sounds as though you have a deferred capital maintenance of Amherst Street floor / the road, Cognate Road roof, about $1 to $1.5 million approximately. Then you have replace the training facility at the landfill for fire training of approximately $2 million, and then replace the Pine Hill Road or Airport Station number 5 of about $19 million. And then is it fair to say a new fire station on the horizon outside of the 5 years, but is necessary at some point based off of the master plan of about 22,000 square feet approximately? I just want to make sure I understand that at about approximately $20 million.
The new station outside the 5-year window?
Yes.
No, that would probably be a smaller facility. I would guess probably in the 15,000 square foot range.
That's what I needed to know. Great, thank you.
Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you. Just a quick question about the Amherst Street floor. Repairing this, as you said, that would allow all of the trucks that we would assume that would be there, can be there, without causing any problems. I know there was conversation that because of the current crack, there was an issue with being able to have the larger trucks there. So would everything be able to come back and still be housed there, under
Yeah.
repair?
Yeah, so under the repair, it would allow us to exist under our current conditions, which we have 2 pieces of apparatus in there. If we were to achieve the funding we need for a new Pine Hill Road station, we would be looking to relocate one of those pieces of apparatus out to that section of the city as well. We would redeploy some of our assets throughout the city.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure you know that Lisa, Director Lisa Photo just reached out to me and told me she's going to be joining us momentarily. She's
Okay.
running a little late.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Mayor. So my question is in regards to the Pine Hill Road Station. So my question would be, why would we replace that instead of keep that and then open a new station in addition to it?
So that is an option as well. Currently, the station, I think when the building condition assessment comes back, the dollar amount that we need to put into that building is not going to be worth the juice that we get out of the squeeze, so to speak. It's an older facility. It was built for a single company. We can't locate 2 companies in that building, which is something that we're looking to do.
If I
Yeah,
could.
go ahead.
Is there room to renovate that and expand that facility there? Would that be a cost savings? Is that possible?
I can't attest to that at this point in time. I will tell you that land-wise, we're pretty squeezed in there.
Okay. Just one more
Yeah.
follow-up. What would be, if you saw the future and you're gonna replace that facility, what would you think would be the right thing to do with that facility, given that you would move out of it to a new one? Would you keep it in the hopes that at some point we would reopen it?
No, I think I would shutter that in hopes of working some sort of a land deal with the airport authority
Okay,
to gain some land in the immediate area, perhaps. I know they like having the fire department right there at the airport. We're hopeful to stay right in that same neighborhood, not wander too far. That location works very well for us to serve the Amherst Street corridor as well as the Broad Street corridor. And I think that we'll gain some advantage in response effectiveness by putting 2 units at that same location.
okay, interesting, thank you.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple of questions. But first, I'll start off with the Pine Hill Road Station. Built in 1960, it was built as a single-engine house with no foresight whatsoever of putting any other companies in there. So it's single-purpose. One would probably look in the engineering sense that once we vacate it, an engineer wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot steel rod, because the roof structure was a prefab. Am I correct about that? So it's being held by the exterior walls. So once you start, moving those walls to increase the size, you're talking a new roof completely. So you might as well start off from scratch. I mean, the repair work would just be phenomenal, on that particular building. So I could bite on that. But the Amherst Street station, it's got like you say, a full basement. The heating system, for what I remember, and I remember fondly, we were watching Braveheart, and we got this smell coming up about when they were lighting the flames on the battlefield, and said, geez, these VCRs are pretty good. They come up with their own order, but we had one heck of a, fire in the basement with the heating system, so we used to keep that running. But there's a full basement underneath. Did you look into partial filling in as a cost to get the longevity? I mean, this is quite an historic, it's the last building that is owned by the fire department that ash and cinders of the horses ran out of those, so it's, and so, I'm just saying, is that the best engineering, or was that the cheapest estimate that the engineers came up with?
So the current estimate we have is strictly to repair the floor. I would agree with you, the building is very aged, very historic. It is in a prime location. If I had, you know, a magic wand and I could wave it, close that firehouse and put a brand-new one in that same location, modernized, that is the spot for us in that neighborhood. I think everybody sitting here recognizes that we are not going to achieve or purchase any land in that area anytime soon. To your point, if we've investigated filling that, anything like that, we have not at this point in time. We're trying to get the building condition assessment underway and see what that comes back with feedback. I think that the future of the Amherst Street Fire Station is going to be a single-engine company house that will cut down on the wear and tear. The parking for the members on duty there is very limited. They have to park in the street, other people have to leave, and then they can get their vehicles into the parking lot. It's not a good setup for a current modern fire station at this point in time. But if we reduce the day in and day out wear and tear on the building, we can probably increase the longevity of the structure itself.
Yeah, one more question.
Yes, Alderman O'Brien.
You know, because I'm very concerned, as you know, with fire apparatus, it's not a stagnant load, it's a transient load. It's constantly going out, it's constantly coming back in. So repairing the crack will get you by maybe 10 years or something like that. We're hoping, I think, in this committee to have a better longevity for this particular building. So that's why I recommend, I don't know, maybe perhaps with Mr. Cummings, I would like to see what would be the filling in versus, you know, that may not be the final solution. I have not, you know, I slept at a Holiday Inn, but I don't have an engineering degree, you know, so, you know, I can't say, you know, but it would make some sense to me, you know, and that's it. Thank you.
And the facility study, I assume, is looking at Amherst Street, right? The whole
Oh, yeah.
thing, not just the floor.
We'll be looking at all 8 of our facilities, correct?
Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that the engineering study is going to give you the facts involved with what can and can't be done and what the cost effectiveness of that work would be and alternative solutions that might have a better lifetime analysis as far as cost. I know I've talked to the chief several times about stations up in my ward, locations. You know, the airport's concerned about coverage for the airport. You know, ideally, if you could get the big problem with the airport fire station right now is if there's any catastrophe on Sharon Avenue, those trucks can't get to Amherst Street, and they have to wait for the trucks from Amherst Street. So ideally, it would be if it had connectivity across the back of the airport somehow, but the engineering analysis is going to come up with all of the recommendations as to what they think is most prudent.
I had a question. When is the facility study, when do you think it'll be finished?
January.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was thinking late fall, early winter of next year, and I believe the program has a presentation to the Board of Aldermen included in it, so.
Okay. And a question about the relocated training facility. So, as I understand it, but correct me if I'm wrong, the equipment or the structure that you've got at the current location is mobile and can be moved over to a different location within the landfill or somewhere else. So is it possible that you could do the training facility in a two-stage approach? First move the mobile, what you have now, into elsewhere in the landfill and within the perimeter of the landfill, and then construct the building that's contemplated at a later date?
Yes, absolutely. If you remember, we had a concrete structure out there at one point in time that we worked with DPW. They took that down for us. And basically, the building that we'd be looking to put back up would be something similar to that, but modernized. That was built in the late 1980s.
And what kind of structure would that be?
It would be a Class A burn structure, and there'd be a section for a classroom and some facilities out there. You know, currently we operate out of a portable toilet, and we're able to use the classroom at the new DPW building and the facilities there, but it's a little bit of a walk, and once the members start engaging in what we refer to as live burn activities, we're not going to send them into a brand new building after that.
And what is a Class 1 burn structure?
Class A building means we burn wood, hay, Class A combustibles.
Alderman Dowd.
I was just gonna say, do you remember when we did the fire training, you were in there with a fire hose? Yeah,
Yes.
that type of building. The two things I see relative to that move, one thing you will need is a fire hydrant. So you would have to run a line from somewhere, and that's a cost to have that, and as Mr. Cummings knows all too well, working with the Penachuk, that's, needs some planning and some analysis to see where you're gonna get the water from. The other thing is, we're moving the portable classrooms, which we just refurbished from the two elementary schools. There's 4 of them. I know they're going to the landfill, but I don't know if you have uses yet for them, or, because they have a bathroom in it, and sinks, and, you know, you could take one of those for temporarily.
Yep.
We have all the foundations, because they're also going to the landfill. So, that could be factored into the consideration, save you a hell of a lot of money. They're gonna be free.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on the water line?
So we're working really hard to build relationships over there at the DPW garage. This is, I hesitated to bring this project forward tonight, except for the fact that I know you're putting a plan together for the next 5 years. And when Director Photo and I started engaging in this conversation, that's about the timeline that we're looking at. So we're working together to come up. We haven't even walked the land yet at this point in time, but we're working to put a project together where they would assist us with some of these things.
Okay. Alderman O'Brien.
Yeah, if my memory is correct, there is a hydrant system out there, correct? I think it's just the one, or is it 2? But the question is, what is the distributor going to the hydrant? Because you're gonna need copious amount of water when you're having a training exercise. I mean, folks, that deck gun will flow, what is it, something like north of 500 GPM, so it's, you're talking an awful lot of water. And then the secret is, let's get it unmetered, you know?
That's the Penachuk difference.
So
It happened.
the current NFPA standard requires us to have 2 water sources when we conduct any live fire training. So we currently have 2 at the location out there, and part of that was extended when the new building went in. We've always had 2 out there, and the plan we're putting together, we have identified a way to bring water into the identified site. I would rather not speak to that at this point in time.
2 sources means 2 fire hydrants? What is that?
Correct.
Two
Right.
fire.
I-
All right, anyone else?
I was just,
Director Photo,
I was just
who
gonna-
we did not recognize as being present, so here you are, but, yes,
Sorry, I was a bit
Director
late.
Photo.
I just wanted to add to what Chief Buxton was saying. Currently, we do not have a hydrant to service the landfill, which is a fairly serious problem. So having the fire training ground in that location would also allow us to have water should we have a landfill fire or something of that nature, which we have had before and have had to rely on Hollis and other communities.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions of Chief Buxton? All right, well, thank you very much for coming in and
Thank you for your time and consideration.
filling us in. Now we have the police department. A little outnumbered by the fire
I
department.
know.
I don't know what that means.
We're asking for a lot less money.
That's a rarity, Mr. Mayor.
Good
Go
evening. Tom Bolton, Captain, Nashville Police Department. From a police department perspective, training is the most valuable service that we can provide our officers. So why is police training so important? Over the past several years, we have seen changing demands on our profession. Mistakes by officers are far less tolerated than they were not even decades ago, even 2 years ago. Mistakes are far, far less tolerated. National PD is no different than any other law enforcement agency in that recruitment and retention do remain considerations and are problems for us. New officers, as well as their families, expect now that we provide the officers the most amount of training that they can get to go out and be successful. NPD was recently fortunate to acquire 9 Riverside Drive as a training facility. This building is intended to be used for in-service training. In training at this facility, how we intend to use it is going to first include training with simunitions. For those that have not been through a police training before, simunitions takes into account the gear that we are normally equipped with on a daily basis, to include realistic replicas of our firearms that are retrofitted with actual projectiles that shoot paint ammunition at individual officers, so that as we go through scenarios, you develop a sensory experience of what it is like to get into critical incidents. Also with the paint, as it becomes fired, you are able to see where your marks are hitting. So there are numerous examples that we've seen throughout the years where officers will discharge their firearms and the projectiles end in areas that were not intended, which creates a bad situation to be made even worse. Training sites also allow us to do scenario-based training for defensive tactics, but probably most importantly is it allows us to provide judgment testing on our officers. So we're able to go in and manufacture stress on our officers in a very safe setting, which allows us to be able to determine how people perform and see if they are actually able to meet our standard. This is most valuable prior to us even putting new officers onto the street to determine if they will in fact work out for us. And if we can do it so in an environment that's safe for them, safe for the other officers, and most importantly, safe for the public, that is certainly the best course of action for us to go. I recently attended a training that was put on by the Director of Training for the U.S. Marshal Service, and all their studies that they are finding is that more frequent, repetitive training in realistic environments are equipping and situating their deputies to be able to go out and make the best decisions possible. It's a valuable service to learn from because they are involved in the most amount of deadly force scenarios out of any law enforcement agency in the United States. So they went and analyzed how they can best equip their deputies to go out and make the best sorts of decisions. And what they found is by going in and having the deputies go into these environments where they are slowly indoctrinating them into stress to where they, over time, can develop critical reasoning as they go through different scenarios, that over time, they develop better decision-making in higher stress environments. And that's ultimately the goal that we're looking for, is to get our officers to have more frequent exposure to stress in safe conditions so that when the real events happen, they've essentially been there before. So what's important to us for a training site? It's accessibility. A training site doesn't do us any good if it is so difficult and cumbersome for us to get to that we're not using it. Cleanliness is certainly a factor, as well as a place where we can establish realistic environments. For our site at 9 Riverside, what do we need to be able to get it to be completely serviceable for us? Fairly small bill in this one to include largely security retrofits to things such as locks, doors, a couple of secured walls and cameras. Related to the project at 9 Riverside is proposed to build a garage that will hold some of our specific purpose vehicles. These include our bomb scene truck as well as our mobile command. Right now, we're left with the decision of keeping these vehicles on premises with no shelter from the weather or store them off-site. Over the years, we've elected both options, and neither is ideal. When a vehicle is left on-site in the elements, these are expensive vehicles that eventually degrade. When we need them in an emergency, it's highly inefficient to have them kept off-site. This is probably most and best seen with our mobile command vehicle, which is our default system to our dispatch center. When dispatch currently goes down, we'll bring the mobile command in to be able to continue on with dispatch operations. However, with not having it on site and where it's currently stored, that delay can become critical. And if we're able to keep it on site, if there is to be some failure in dispatch, and there has been periodically over the years, it would allow our dispatchers to be able to just simply walk out of our building, get into the mobile command, which would be kept on site, and be able to continue on with no delay in service or response. Also related to the building is our fencing. Many of you have seen our dilapidated fence before. One of the things that becomes a unique concern for police agencies is that fences are more than aesthetics. Fences do provide a significant amount of security for us, or certainly should. It is currently not a secure premises. It's about as watertight as cheesecloth. Several years ago, when civil unrest unfolded, this did create a fair amount of anxiety for us because we were not able to fully secure our entire property. We currently only have manual gates, which rarely do close. And over the years, we have found a number of individuals in areas intended to be secure in various states of mind that have, but for the grace of God, things have turned out well to this point. In addition to that, the current fence configuration often requires officers to make complicated driving patterns to be able to navigate our parking lot. And over the years, we have seen an inordinate number of motor vehicle collisions that have occurred on our property, which is less than ideal with officers getting into crashes that often. So what are we looking for that is to be able to establish a secure perimeter, better gate access. In addition to that, to install privacy slats on the fencing. There's a number of reasons for the privacy slats to include, we do have officers that work in undercover capacity. We will occasionally bring in tactical units for different types of situations, and so privacy slats could certainly assist with maintaining the level of security that our organization should have. Our pavement. Any of you have driven onto the NPD pavement? It's littered with a number of potholes. Recently, walking the site with a construction manager, we discovered that we were ill-equipped with drains. And so the upper parking lot has no drains, and the lower parking lot has 2 to 3 drains, which for a site that large is wholly inadequate. The parking lot has never been repaved. It's original to 1979. The typical life expectancy of a parking lot is 20 to 30 years, which certainly puts us well over that mark. Finally, the prisoner area. We have a very dated prisoner area. For any of you that visited the department in a tour, it it would you will have seen that it is something certainly of its age. It's designed with metal bars and metal partitions, and what's concerning to us is in our field with us observing more interactions with individuals with severe mental health conditions that do become manifest more greatly upon incarceration are the rates of attempted suicide that we're seeing. And it's largely done by hanging, which the bars and the exposed sprinklers provide a easy mechanism for that to happen. Prison areas are very expensive. We're fortunate to have the bones to a facility where it will not cost as much as certainly building an entirely new one. However, our previous CALIA assessments are the accreditation body that oversees our operations has previously made note of how dated our facility is, and we've been fortunate to this point to have vigilant women and men at the organization that have stopped incidents, again, suicide and whatnot, prior to completion. But I don't want to continue to roll the dice on that happening. And so what has become industry standard for prisoner areas are concrete and plexiglass, which significantly diminish the opportunity for someone to be able to have self-harm. That concludes our larger plan.
Could you, or Director Cummings, update us as to where we are with the training facility and the upgrading of that? I think it's in design, or could you clarify
correct.
that?
Yep, if I may, Mr. Mayor, if that's
Yeah.
all right with you, Lieutenant. Again, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. So these numbers that you see up on the screen have a little bit more confidence in because of where we're at, to the mayor's point, relative to design. So we have gotten to what I would say is about 75% of design for the 9 Riverside Training Facility project. As you may or may not know, the Police Commission approved a plan. That plan had been forwarded to the Board of Aldermen in a convening of a joint Police Commission and Committee on Infrastructure, have been meeting in good faith in an effort to try to move this project along. This is not a new project. This is something that's been on the horizon with the building of the DPW Administrative Office Building. It was anticipated that 9 Riverside would be essentially the care and control of that building would be ceased from DPW and transferred over to the police department. And with that all occurring, we're now just trying to retrofit 9 Riverside to meet the needs and the demands of the police department. So we've gone forth through prior sources of funds in budget and or escrow to get to a level of design. We have a contract, we have a construction manager under contract. They have just done their first round of pricing for us. We have been working through the permitting process. We are, in theory, subject to approval for bond authorization on a trajectory to try to start construction for either this late summer, early fall. If we don't make that, then we would definitely be able to make the next construction season for next spring. But we are making good progress on all those efforts. Relative to the police parking lot, as Lieutenant Bolton noted, there's
Captain Bolton.
I'm sorry, Captain Bolton.
I'd be called a lot worse.
Get that tour you were looking for.
So the parking lot is not just a repaving, but it's a reconstruction of the entire parking lot in and of itself. And I say that so folks don't think that this is just a traditional paving project. $500,000 by no means would be necessary for that, but doing drainage, doing a redesign of the parking lot in and of itself is something that we are, because we're focusing on the 9 Riverside building already, and it's right beside the police station. We've started to look at it and try to understand what the costs are, with the idea of us having a design in hand and being prepared to move forward with construction if and when there's funding available. But we want to put everyone in a good place so that they can proceed with construction when funding arises. The one number that I would point out to you that is a little bit iffier is the $2 million for the cell block booking area. And this is an important project to maintain accreditation, as you just heard, but that is a project that needs a little more study and design before we have confidence in that $2 million figure. It's a project that I would note that probably could be done in the outer years, but one that is definitely in short order of needing to be done so accreditation can be maintained.
Okay, Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Cummings, I'm sorry, Director Cummings, you could probably answer this question. I don't know why, but I'd written a note on the $500,000 deferred capital for the police parking, $1.5 million. Did we mention that if we add the Riverside and so on, that price tag would go up, or is that $500,000 is pretty secure? So I don't know why I wrote my note.
Yeah, no, I would say putting the 9 Riverside project aside, I would say the project is somewhere around $500,000, depending on when we do it, right? So one thing that we need to keep in the back of our mind is this is a snapshot as of today. As we're moving out future years, escalation needs to be factored in, and we can do that once we get into building this out to be a formula. But right now, to just do the project, I think you could do it well within the $500,000.
So I have no idea why I wrote that, but I'm going to scratch it out. Thank you.
Alderman Dowd.
In that number, are you anticipating tearing up all the existing tar, looking at the subsoil underneath? Because I think, at least in the upper parking lot, it's not good. And, as far as the grading and everything is involved, and tying the 2 parking lots together, including 9 Riverside. So I would assume that you want to have somebody do an analysis first before we come up with a final price.
Alderman Dowd, Tom Bolton, Captain National Police. What we would be looking for the site work would include grading, compacting existing underpavement, combining the lot with 9 Riverside, installing a 2-inch binder course, a 1.5-inch top course, resetting the existing granite curb, and installing parking lanes.
Sounds about right.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yeah, I may also too, Mr. Cummings, perhaps maybe you could, Captain, drain situation. You need more, agreed. But they go into that waterway, correct? So it will be a direct flow access, and so at least we won't have to tie into a.
We will prefer not. We will prefer not to tie in, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
We would prefer not to tie into the existing drainage combined system. Ideally, we'll try to perk on site, and that would be, I think, from a planning perspective, the most ideal way to handle and mitigate stormwater management issues. That is all to be determined, but definitely a goal that we have.
Yeah, so the public knows that's what the fish is supposed to mean on the storm drain. It goes to a waterway.
Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a quick question about the cell booking area and how that ties into accreditation, because I know accreditation is important for both police and fire and keeping that up to code. Is there a time frame where that would start to become more of an issue when it comes to accreditation? Is there kind of a wall of, well, if this isn't taken care of in 5 years or 10 years, then it's an issue? Or are we still kind of in compliance for now, or where do we stand on that?
Tom Bolton, Captain National Police. We are in compliance. The chief just recently went to Mobile, Alabama, and we received a stellar assessment. However, in our previous reports, they have highlighted the dated prisoner area. In all assessments, the booking area is the one that creates the most amount of angst for any assessor or accreditation manager, because the standards are so vast. In order to be able to continually meet those standards, our prisoner area does not do us any favors. And so we rely on the vigilance of the women and men of the National Police Department to be able to keep us afloat. However, there are some things that could certainly ease that, and that's having the proper infrastructure. So if, in going in and again reading the previous assessments, it has highlighted how dated the facility is and how that is no longer within industry standards that have moved far beyond what we currently are. It's, if, again, even looking at the news recently, the Bristol County Sheriff's Department in Massachusetts has recently come under some spotlight regarding the maintaining the oldest jail in the country, which is if you were to look at it, appears to be a similar design to the National Police Department's holding facility. And that's not necessarily something that we want to parallel. So as a result, we are in compliance, but they have made note for the fact of how dated the facility is and how there is a much better way to do business.
Thank you.
I did have a couple of questions. Oh, the fence. Now, are you talking about a fence around the current police station or around the training facility?
Mr. Mayor, the fence will include both, but the fence is a replacement for the existing fence. So if you were to drive into the property, you would see an ill-colored green fence that is fallen over, leaning, rotted. The fence would be replacing that. The fence would also then, for a new section, extend around the training facility, bringing it up to where transit is located.
And is that within the $3.5 million, or is that a separate item?
It's within the target budget for the $3.5 million.
Okay. The lower parking lot, the upper, I assume you mean where you go in the front door.
That's correct.
And the lower is back in the back where it's kind of where you've got more of your police vehicles, or what do you mean?
Correct. That's considered the lower parking lot, the one that's closest to Riverside Drive.
Okay. Anyone else? No one? We've authorized the $3.5 million, right? We have not, okay. So we've authorized the design, but not the build. Okay. All right, well, anybody has any other questions? No. All right, well, thank you very much, Captain Boland.
Thank you.
And thank you to the fire department. So we will be scheduling another meeting.
We have one.
Oh, we have another
Yep.
schedule? What is the next schedule?
April 18th, Mayor. Again, for the record, Director Cummings. April 18th, we have this scheduled. The thought process would be is to bring in a few more departments that evening, try to keep it to about an hour, and continue moving this conversation along.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you all for coming. So I will turn to President Wilshire for...
I would happily make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and the meeting is adjourned at 7:25 PM.
Yes.